What's up, everybody? This is the Clappercast coming at you with episode 36. This is Monday, January 13th, 2020. Still getting used to saying that. And I'm Burke.
And I'm Sean.
And let's get right into the week that was in the NHL. So, yesterday, Devils made a pretty crazy announcement that they fired their GM mid-season. So Ray Shero's out.
I Why now? I was supremely confused when you texted me and said Shero's done. That in the middle of January they fired the GM. Were they trying to salvage the season? Like what are they going with that?
His job here is done.
They are exactly where they started.
Active off-season, trade the best player, fire the coach. I mean, what else can he do?
Yeah.
Wrap
Yeah,
it
at a
up.
certain point. I mean, at a certain point his job was basically done regardless. He was going to get fired at the end of the season probably. Because he's had 5 years now, and they've honestly they've regressed.
Yeah.
He was pretty much on his way out the door. Um, it's weird for them to have done it now, but I figure this way it gives the ownership group and hockey ops people a chance to actually kind of vet some candidates and see who's available. And it gives them a chance to bring the guy in, possibly evaluate the team before the draft and before the trade deadline. Well, maybe not the trade deadline, but the offseason, to come into the offseason with an actual plan rather than just bringing him in on the offseason and starting there.
How long until Shero is the GM of the Nashville Predators? You think Poyle is going to be done so that there's a reuniting of Hines and Shero?
Ooh, that would be quite the timeline.
I don't know why you'd want him, but I don't
I
know
mean,
why they'd
hockey's
want
pretty
Hines.
nepotistic, so like
Yeah.
wouldn't put it past him to be like, yeah, I'll just hire my buddy back.
Did you see that picture from like the Predators' first practice with Hines as coach, and they all look super surprised and bewildered? They were all like kind of slack-jawed,
There
like
were there were a
what?
couple that had that look on their face when you were in like grade 12 calculus and the teacher was drawing some weird like 13 line long formula on the board. They're just like,
What?
what the fuck is going on here? I think that sums up John Hines in New Jersey, to be honest.
I think so. Yeah. So yeah, Tom Fitzgerald named interim general manager. I don't really know much about him. What was he? Was he assistant GM? Yeah, he was
Um,
assistant. He was assistant GM. So he's got the job for now. There's some rumors that Brodeur might be being groomed to take over in a full-time role because he came
they'd
back
have
to
to
New
bring over
Jersey
St. Louis
and
Blues legend Martin Brodeur.
well, he's already there. He came back for an office job
Okay.
in 2018, but I think he's just been, starring in Enterprise Rent-A-Car commercials and just making some appearances for the team. But um,
Actually, you know what? It makes sense. It does make sense. I remember back at the end of his career, I think they groomed him to be the GM by having him announce they drafted his son.
oh yeah,
I think that was step one. That why is it that every single time a team is in like a very lengthy rebuild and long stretch that they bring back all of these fan favorites and like heroes from the past generations to be in major roles in the team?
because they were, I guess, saviors as players, so they obviously know how to run a team too, right?
Yeah.
There's an article from the New York Times about, Shero being fired, and they were talking about how, Brodeur is also kind of getting a new role, but it's kind of unsure what that really is. But he was at the conference of the announcement, so he might be, kind of the favorite for the job. I don't really
That
know.
would make sense.
I think he would. I guess he did have a little bit of experience as being an assistant in St. Louis.
I believe so. I believe he was an assistant GM there, so kind of makes sense. Put the one guy as an interim for the rest of the season with Broder very closely tailing him, and then come the end of the year or right before the draft or whatever, officially announce Broder as the GM.
Yeah,
Ray Shero had 4.5 seasons, I think, in New Jersey. They had 1 year where the New Jersey Taylor Halls went to the playoffs, and the rest of them were pretty mediocre years.
that's very true. Yeah, and now they don't even have him yet. So,
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see what happens there. I guess stock up on picks. I think they've kind of been turning it around a little bit. Like the team's kind of playing a bit better. I know Gusev has been lighting it up. You think he's got 12 points in his last 12 games?
Yeah, they are on a bit of a hot streak right now. I think would they just beat Washington and Tampa Bay?
Not a big deal. And Blackwood's out too, right? So it's been the Louis
Yes.
Domingue show. And Blackwood, shout out to him. He took that slap shot to like the head and knocked out like four teeth, and he finished the game. Did you see
Yep,
that picture of
hockey
him
guy.
with like a bloody
Hockey
mouth?
guy right there. Yeah, I did. Isn't he had a worse tooth line than Drew Doughty.
He's not quite at the same level, but kind of reminiscent of Gibson on those god awful Ducks teams. Like he was having like an
Yeah.
outstanding season, but the team was just so garbage that they were losing so many games.
Yeah, it's like John Gibson is like the best goalie in the league, but he's played on an awful team, so he can never actually show it.
Yeah, it's kind of what he's going through right now in New Jersey, right?
I think so.
He's got some great numbers this year. It's just, can't do a whole lot when the team is not playing in front of you.
I think I saw this stat that was like the Devils are about a 90 something pace team when Blackwood's in net, but they're 28 or something when anyone else is playing.
They recalled Corey Schneider again, so I don't know if he'll be getting a
Makes his making his return.
yeah with his like robot groin. Tough.
Does he? Yeah, I was gonna say he doesn't even have one anymore, but I guess they can probably just give him a new one. Flipping around.
Poor guy. Poor
Yeah, I mean,
guy.
imagine too, like the impact that losing a goalie of his caliber had on the team's success.
Hmm.
Because I mean, Corey Schneider coming to New Jersey was one of the better goalies in the league. He'd been groomed for so
Absolutely.
long, and he finally got his chance to take over a starting role, and then within 3 or 4 years, he's injured out of the league.
And he was like Vezina caliber there for a little bit too. Like he was having
Yeah,
outstanding
definitely.
years, and now the team's kind of falling apart. Tough for New Jersey, the one sports show in town. Not a promising year after all that buzz in the offseason about how they had the best offseason and they won the
And I mean, to
offseason.
be honest, they did have a really good offseason. The players that they had brought in and what they had even given up for it, like that's bringing in Subban, bringing in Wayne Simmons, getting Jack Hughes in the draft, like that should have revitalized them a little bit, but they're still struggling with ultimately, and this falls on Shero after he had 5 years to do it, but the lack of depth they had,
Hmm.
and possibly the stubbornness sticking with a coach that doesn't seem to be the most astute or fit for the team that he was given, we'll say.
Yeah, true. Maybe let's move on here to everyone's favorite team, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Canada's team, come on, man.
Yeah, it's got the right there on the flag, Sean. It's just a different color, but it's the same thing. The Maple Leaf.
I vote that starting in 2021, yeah, starting in 2021, the Maple Leafs should be the Canada Maple Leafs, not the Toronto Maple
The Toronto Canada
Leafs. The
Leafs.
Toronto Canadas.
Yeah, they had some kind of out of nowhere, but it was announced that Morgan Rielly was injured today with like a fracture in his foot.
Yeah, fractured foot.
Reevaluated after how many weeks? Like 8 or something?
Yep, he'll be out a minimum of 8 weeks after they found a fractured foot or a fractured bone in his foot somewhere that they say was suffered in the January 12th game against Florida. But I like to think that it was actually suffered when Morgan Rielly got absolutely dangled by McDavid.
Yeah,
I think that's actually when it happened. He's just playing through it for a week.
yeah, broke his ankle when McDavid just fucking worked him.
That was one of the sleekest moves I have seen in a game in a long time.
That was pretty absurd. Yeah, that was just one of those things that if you're not a big hockey fan, like you'd watch that and be like, "What's the big deal?" But as someone who pays attention, you'd be like, "Holy shit, what the hell
Yeah.
just happened?" That's such a crazy thing to happen.
Like you see like the crossovers in soccer and like the between the legs things in basketball. And like I think that's about hockey's equivalent, what McDavid did.
Just next level, man.
Hmm.
And it's just a quick acceleration to get by him, and then like the quick stick handles and just roofs it. It's so
Yeah.
nice.
It's that first step speed that McDavid has. That he's so explosive that he was able to just slow down into Riley and then just in the span of, a millisecond in one step, just went completely around him after he controlled the speed so well on that play.
It just made him look so average. Yeah, I mean, maybe he had hurt feelings and he's day to day with hurt feelings and
Can't let that happen again.
yeah, but seriously though, that's a tough break for the Leafs who already have Jake Muzzin on the IR. That's, two of their
Yeah.
top four D men.
Here, I mean, this is the stat that I was going to bring as the significance of losing Morgan Rielly, that he is by far their most utilized defenseman. He averages 24-15 in ice time per game. Their second is Jake Muzzin. who is at 21 per game. So they're losing, and they don't have really anybody to replace that. I mean, Tyson Barrie can step in to an extent, but then who fills in for Barrie?
Yeah, and Barry's not as defensively sound as Morgan Rielly is.
Exactly, that too.
Talking about this at work when me and a coworker of mine found this injury news. Cody Ceci is going to get more minutes now, which is pretty scary, I think.
Yeah, he's gonna have to. I mean, at this point, he's probably playing on the top pairing at this point.
Yeah, I think he was playing the beginning of the season with Riley, but I think since then, especially since the coaching change, it's been kind of switched up a bit. But Dermott and Cece, I think, are going to have to step up. The Leafs already called up Rasmus Sandin, who everybody got to see in that World Junior tournament. He had a great tournament, but he's played a couple games in the NHL. Babcock had some great things to say about him, but it's going to be tough to jump in mid-season and play a lot of minutes.
I mean, the guy. I mean, his confidence has to be running high right now for Sandin coming off of that tournament where he was named the top defenseman in the entire tournament. So he's gonna be coming in with some confidence, you think? But he's not really gonna get a chance to ease in with like a third pairing role because he's probably not that type of defenseman. He's going to be asked to come in and do a little bit more, and especially because who else are you going to put on the power play? You got Tyson Barrie, Cody Ceci, like Justin Hall, Travis Dermott, Martin Marincin as defensemen who have played this year.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have a great option for that second power play unit. So Barry's going to be getting a lot of time on the first one for sure, but there's going to be a few shifts for the second one that someone's going to have to fill in.
Yeah, I don't think Martin Marincin is going to get a lot of PP time. That's not happening. But I mean, any of those other guys probably could very well have some time out there.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
It's a rough time of year to lose them too, though, because this is right when they're getting good. This is right when they're right back in it. They still have some good teams in the Atlantic to compete with, and now they're down another defenseman.
Pretty rough. To reiterate here, 2 of the top 4 D-men gone is a huge impact on any team, obviously. But silver lining, they just had Andreas Janssen come back, and with Riley going on IR, it means that they'll have the cap space to take everybody in again, because they were going to be over the cap with, I think, who else was on the IR for them that just came back too?
Everybody?
Yeah, fuck, there's somebody, but they weren't going to have enough space, and now they conveniently do. It happens every
I
time.
still say it's conspiracy. It has to be. I'm grabbing my tinfoil hat here. Like
It was like when Hyman came back. That was when Janssen went on IR. It's just, I know it doesn't make their team better to have Riley out. I mean, I'm sure they would rather have Riley in than not in.
yes,
It just seems weird that this keeps happening, right? Like the team that's up against the cap consistently has these convenient timings of players coming in and out of the lineup. Just I don't know.
is it a curse or a blessing? Like it's a curse because someone's always getting injured, but it's a blessing because it's never a bad time.
Yeah, it's like, well, convenient timing at least.
Yeah, it's the curse or the blessing of Robot Island, basically.
Yeah, I know
However,
it's not.
however you view it.
I know it's not real because like Riley for 8 weeks is like, okay, this is I guess taking that at face value that it's 8 weeks. Could be less than that, but why does this keep happening?
Yeah,
It's one of
yeah.
those weird things. It's like just easy to notice but hard to explain, I guess. Pretty bizarre. But that sucks for the Leafs that their most dependable D man is out. And like you said, this is a tough time to lose him because he's gonna be gone for until the first round, right? No.
Let's see. It's gonna take him. That's gonna take him to about mid-March. So right after they probably won't need him after they've clinched a playoff spot. But on the positive side for that, he should be back late with enough time in the regular season to get himself back into game shape and up to game speed,
Mm.
so that he can jump in the playoffs and not be completely rusty.
Yeah. Well, Sean, I think it's that time. I think it's time to get into the Kassian Tkachuk.
Oh boy. Here's a heated situation from last weekend between the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames.
The
When
Battle of Alberta.
yeah, the battle is rising up again. The last couple seasons, it's been heated at times, and it's not going away again anytime soon.
It's a great time.
So over the weekend, Matthew Tkachuk, throughout the game, had been taking some runs at Zack Kassian. He'd been doing some plays where Kassian was coming up from behind the nets, and Tkachuk was over on the sidewall, kind of by the middle of the circle, and he would charge down. I say charge. He would skate down towards Kassian, from that spot, and then at the very last second turn backwards and then just slide or hit Kassian from behind like that. From into Kassian's side, the first one was pretty high, borderline head contact, depending on the angle you look at. Second one was a very high speed, complete blindside. And after the second one, Zack Kassian absolutely lost his shit on Tkachuk. And Matthew Tkachuk, as he usually does in these types of situations, just completely turtled and tried to get out of the situation. But Kassian was not having any of it and proceeded to absolutely ragdoll him for probably 20 seconds, I think, of solid punching, throwing, dragging, pulling up and down.
Yeah.
Out of the play, Kassian got 4 minutes for roughing and a 10-minute misconduct, and Tkachuk got nothing. On the ensuing power play, the Flames scored what ultimately was the game-winning goal. And today it was announced that Zack Kassian got 2 game suspension for his role in that play, and Tkachuk got nothing, no hearing, nothing. So let's just start with how do you feel about that? So, like, what are your views on how that's been playing out in the game and in the aftermath?
Well, I think that Cassian. Okay, I want to be very, very, very diplomatic here in how I word this. I think Cassian overreacted, but at the same time, it was totally warranted because he was being targeted, obviously, by a player, and the refs weren't calling it, these borderline hits, and he took it into his own hands to settle the score. And as someone who's played hockey, I know that certain players can get under your skin and you feel like you got to do something about it.
I think that's a fair assessment.
As for the reaction, I think there's a lot of people who were giving Cassian a lot of shit because he's throwing a guy around pretty violently. But let's not pretend that Tkachuk is a little angel. It's not like he's throwing around Johnny Gaudreau, right? It's a player who has a history of borderline play and probably well deserved, right? Like let's call a spade, right? Like Tkachuk is a shithead. Cassian
Oh
treated him
yeah.
like that. Like I don't think it wasn't that egregious.
And the thing, like you say, like he's got a history of those borderline type things. Like he's gonna do stuff like that, and then he won't answer the bell for it.
Yes. And in
I think that's kind
hockey,
of where that goes.
that's kind of a big deal. That's part of the culture. Is if you're
Yep.
gonna play like that, you gotta step up. You gotta answer the bell, right? Like that's
Hmm.
always been a thing in hockey. Is if you play on the line like that, you gotta be ready to throw down with whoever comes over to stand you up. Like Tom Wilson, even the dirtier guys that played, like Rafi Torres. We'll touch more on that again, but they were ready to throw down. Matt Cook, those type of guys. If
Hmm.
they play that borderline on the edge, maybe even over the edge play, but they are always willing to throw down. So you might think that they're a rat or a piece of shit or whatever, but they still fought.
Yeah.
So they had a little bit of respect. It was like, okay, you're an asshole, but at least you'll actually square up with someone who doesn't like what you're doing. Whereas
Hmm.
Kachuk has shown repeatedly he doesn't.
Yep.
And uh, Drew Doughty is the most notorious example. Him and Kachuk have had this beef for a few seasons, and it's super entertaining. And it's frustrating to play against that type of player. Like the Claude Lemieux, that turtle. It's just like you can even now when players on the Detroit Red Wings talk about that his hit and his turtling, you can tell that they think he's a piece of shit who's spineless and gutless, right? Like
Hmm.
it's just one of those things.
Yeah. And like you talk about Kachuk, his play style. Like I'm pretty sure I think it's him that his favorite player was like Corey Perry or Brad Marchand or something.
Oh yeah.
One of those two. Like it kind of gives you an idea of the type of player he was or is.
Hmm.
And the thing is, like, he is exactly the type of pest that's going to do that. Like, he knows exactly what he's doing the entire game. He knows he's going after a guy who's going to react at some point. He was just doing it over and over again to try and get this exact reaction. He
Hmm.
knows what he's doing. He did it on purpose, and he knew exactly when Kassian was going to react. Yeah, I'll just take the beating and get my team a power play. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, like you mentioned, he has a history of turtling. He does it against Edmonton constantly. I can't say for other teams. I don't watch him that much otherwise. but he'll take runs at McDavid or he'll take shots at McDavid. And as soon as someone comes to square up with him or get him off, he'll just turtle and back out.
Yeah.
He does it every single time. It's just his thing. He's trying to get a reaction and draw a penalty.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is like he should have been called, especially on that first one, that wraparound hit.
Yeah. The first one was high. Like that was right in the shoulder, borderline head contact.
Yeah, it looked like he kind of caught him like in the neck almost.
Yeah.
And that's something I wanted to talk about too, and that's something that some players, both active and retired players, are actually talking about, is how Tkachuk is making a dangerous play because he is the winger, and both times he hit Kassian behind or at the Calgary goal line. And as a winger in your defensive zone, that's not where you're supposed to be. And
Exactly.
that's he's coming out of positions, even across the ice, to make that hit on a player in
Exactly.
a vulnerable position. In both cases, he's already being checked by somebody. Like he doesn't need to be there, but he's coming to just blindside him.
Exactly. That says enough. Like he's not making a play on the puck. He's not making a hockey play. He's seriously just going for the body.
Yeah, he's
Like
not
he
making
has
a
no
hockey play at
intention
all.
of touching the puck.
Like you mentioned it, he's trying to draw a penalty and he's going for Kassian because Cassian's an emotional guy and he knows he can rile him up. But like you're not making a hockey play there. You don't need to be there. You're putting yourself out of position. You're targeting a player who's vulnerable, especially on that wraparound attempt. That one to me, how is that not called? It's a high hit on a player vulnerable. It's just dumb. And even
Yeah,
in the second one, Giordano is already checking him.
he is. He's got him. Honestly,
He's
like
got him. Doesn't need to come by, and you can see why Cassian gets frustrated. He's just like, okay, you want to do this?
yeah.
That's
And I
enough.
think on that note, you're talking about players and people in hockey who have commented on this. So a good one, a good very I found it a very articulate statement from James Neal that he gave today in relation to this. So I'll just read that out here. On the third one, Chucky was past me and Cass didn't even have the puck and he runs him and hits. If it's anyone else, they go down, but Cassian stayed up. Look at his legs. On the first one, Cass was engaged with Giordano and he is protecting the puck and going to the net. And if anyone is surprised by the hit, it's his own guy, like Giordano being surprised by why are you there? He takes him out just as bad, Giordano. He says it's a gutless hit on a guy in a very vulnerable position. For him to come out after and say, if he doesn't want to get hit, then stay off the tracks. Those aren't the tracks. He is picking a puck up off the wall on a rim and he's engaged in a battle with a defenseman. And then he, Kassian, has a winger come 10 feet out of position to take his head off. Ask any guy in hockey, no guy in hockey wants to see that hit. This has been gone out of the game for a long time. Guys like Raffi Torres or Steve Downey were getting 15-game suspensions. He targets his head and chases him into a battle he isn't in. And I think that kind of gives a bit of an analytical perspective on the ice to what exactly Matthew Tkachuk is doing on that play. How he goes and runs Kassian, and he ends up first of all interfering with his own guy that he takes Giordano out when he's trying to hit Kassian because Giordano already has Kassian covered. But then talks about if Tkachuk saying if Kassian doesn't want to get hit, stay off the tracks. Like where are these tracks going? Because that's a pretty poorly built train track if Kassian is on your track at that point.
Yeah. And just how far out of his way he's going to make that hit is, I think, is lost upon a lot of people here who see this hit. They just see a big hit and they're like, "Wow, that's cool."
Yeah, and it's like the old time hockey crowd that's thinking, oh, it's just people getting worried about wusses in the game and all that. Well, you can hit a guy completely fine, but when it's completely out of the way like that, it's blindside, borderline charge, high contact. That's the type of hit that you need to get out.
And happening all game.
Yes, it wasn't just a one-time thing either. This was 3 or 4 times in the game. And I think I remember reading about this is the type of hit that Raffi Torres used to throw, that he would completely go out of position on the end wall like that around the boards and just blindside a guy from coming up behind the net.
Yeah.
Not to mention when Tkachuk was throwing all of these hits, he wasn't skating into Kassian head on or anything. He was skating up to him, turning around and throwing his back and ass into him.
Doing the Cronwall Subban style hit,
Yeah,
which is a weird thing to do when the guy's doing a wraparound.
yeah, like it's basically making it blatantly obvious you're trying to throw a clean body check by completely taking your arms and shoulder out of the equation. It's like look at this, I'm not doing anything dirty.
It's a weird one. I wanted to point out, like, I want to take like my Homer glasses off for Tom Wilson. Stop bringing him up, but he's definitely in the news about hits like this. You look at like Wilson highlights of hits. It's top of my head. I don't think there's an example of him making that type of hit behind the Capitals goal line. Like he makes his hits like most wingers do in the neutral zone, the defensive blue line, or in the attacking zone. Like they're hitting the D man in that same spot.
Yeah, and it's more in the corner usually for the winger.
Like if Kassian was the D man, then the winger would come in if that was the attacking zone, right? Like if there was rollers first,
Yes,
then it would be perfectly normal for the winger to be in that position. But the winger behind the goal line is just so weird. He's going out of his way to hit him. And I think that's the crux of the issue here for me, is that's why it's so dirty. Is that like who cares about where the puck is or anything? He's going to hit that guy. That's his intent the whole shift, like to go hit that guy.
exactly.
And that's just stupid. Like that's what we want out of the game, is that sort of stuff. Like I'm going to hit this man even if it's not a safe time to hit him. It's just bullshit. And for people to be mad at Kassian for that, I think is just
I
outrageous.
think, yeah, I mean, Cassian's play in a vacuum, like as an isolated incident, is worthy of suspension because he is absolutely like excessively beating up a guy who wants nothing to do with it. So I'm not upset at Cassian getting suspended. I think like that's probably the right call for him to get a game or two. He ended up with two for how he reacted to the situation. But with the context of everything that's going on, and for Tkachuk to not even get like a hearing or anything, like that's where it becomes completely disproportionate,
Or a
and it
penalty
really
on the
sends
play.
a bad message to as to what's okay and what's not okay. That you're basically saying, oh yeah, go ahead and like aggravate other people, go be like a stupid internet troll, try and anger other people, and then laugh at them when they get mad.
I mean, that's basically it. Calling Cassian like an aggressor and like instigating and stuff. It's like, well, he didn't.
Yes,
In my opinion, he did not. He's being targeted by one player. The refs aren't calling the borderline hits, charges, boarding. On that second one, Cassian kind of had his back towards him. And Tkachuk sort of comes in from the side, but it's a vulnerable position because he's against the boards.
hmm
He comes flying in from like his actual spot to hit him. I understand Cassian why he reacted that way. I agree.
yes.
He lost it, but I
I
understand.
agree. He reacted. His reaction to fight was appropriate, but the extent of which he did it wasn't.
Yeah,
So
when Kachuk wasn't wasn't fighting back, he should have held up.
yeah, and at this point, this is where the aggressor part comes in because he actually like he was correctly given an aggressor, or the penalties as an aggressor or whatever, because that's the rule book defines the aggressor as someone who continues to throw punches in an attempt to inflict punishment on an opponent who is in a defenseless position or is an unwilling combatant. So Tkachuk has shown to be an unwilling as his head is in his jersey, his arms are flailing around, and he's being ragdolled. So he's not really getting anywhere with that.
I mean, to me, yeah, the rule's the rule, and I can appreciate that as someone who refs hockey. But I feel like as someone flying around laying those type of hits, you are a willing participant just by the nature of your play style. Like talk shit, get hit, right? But like play that style, expect that reaction.
Yeah,
I feel like that should be taken into account on that aggressor. If you're unwilling to fight, don't play that way because that's just the culture of hockey.
like you can't just go around and run at people and not expect to have to answer.
Hmm.
It's I think that's the whole thing with the hockey code. It's like if you're gonna go out, it's the whole old school enforcer thing too, where it's like you don't want to go take a run at a star player because you're gonna have to be the one to answer the bell after when someone comes and challenges you.
That's another point that I wanted to make about this whole thing is that Cassian plays on a line with McDavid, and I thought it was absolutely awesome that McDavid is the first one to go after Kachuk on
Yes.
that second
Oh yeah.
one. He just jumps in there,
McDavid's like first
pushes
guy
him
in there.
around, and then
It's
Cassian's
funny.
like, "I got this. Like I'll
He
take,
takes over.
I'll throw him around the ice a little bit."
Like honestly, like that's a nice thing to see from Connor too. As much as I don't want to see him getting involved with fights and stuff like that, it's still like a good sign from the team perspective that he's the first guy in there. He's willing to go and stand up for his teammates,
When the
much the
last
same as they would
time
stand up for him.
the last time Tkachuk and Edmonton kind of had a run in, it was, McDavid wasn't afraid to get in there as well. And
Yeah,
then Kassian, again, jumping in there, just laying the beat down on Tkachuk. But I think that's important, right? Like Kassian is showing like I play on a line with like the league's best player. Like I'm gonna handle my own shit here to let them know like if you do anything to us, I'm out
oh
here.
for sure. It's the same as like McSorley and Semenko, like those guys protecting Gretzky.
I don't know. This is just making me laugh right now, but that's what Kassian does when Kachuk hits him. If Kachuk hits McDavid,
I don't want to find out actually.
like I think he'd still be out there punching him. Like
Oh,
it's just,
probably.
I think Kachuk probably got that message of like, yeah, I can get a reaction from you, but like I'm not. There's no way he'd be making that hit on McDavid, and if he did, he'd probably be getting suspended.
Well, actually, I was just gonna say too. So take Kachuk's hits, and just for a second, pretend he hit McDavid or Draisaitl doing that. Like, what's the reaction from the hockey world, from the league, from the Department of Player Safety after that, instead
Yeah,
of them being on Kassian?
McDavid wraparound.
Yeah, because I mean, McDavid's going to be moving at a higher speed. He's going to be in a different body position, so Kachuk could very easily end up hitting him in a very even worse position than he got Kassian in.
Yeah, much different conversation, and that's what James Neal was saying, right? Like Cassian stayed up.
Yeah, exactly. Kassian's
If
a
if
tank, so he didn't really go down.
he's a crazy man.
But you get a guy like McDavid or Nugent Hopkins even, where
Hmm.
they're a bit leaner, they're a bit more agile. They might not be able to stay up as well.
Or Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah,
Like what happens if Johnny is trying to rap and Cassian or Nurse, decides to put on their fucking revenge pants and just goes crazy on him? Like, I don't know. The next Battle of Alberta is going to be an eventful one. Do you have it circled on your calendar when that next Battle of Alberta is?
um, yeah, it's at the end of the month actually. I believe it is actually going to be Cassian's first game back.
Oh, that's pretty
Yeah,
quick.
it is. Well, we say quick, but it's actually the 29th, so two and a
Right,
half
All
weeks.
Star, All Star
All
break.
Star bye week. So Cassian's going to miss 2 games. His first game back is going to be against Calgary, and then they play 2 times in 3 days, 4 days.
He'll be fresh.
Yeah, so that's gonna be a very energy filled week, we'll say.
That whole
That I
that
think there's
whole
gonna
break.
be there's gonna be something big. That game's gonna start on a very high note. Very physical game, I predict.
Line brawls, like Canucks, Calgary.
Ooh, we could go with another one of those. Be interesting.
Just call up the goons. Yeah, I think Cassie's gonna be just fuming that whole week, just thinking about what he's gonna do. Oh
Yeah, I
man,
just I just hope like for his own sake that it can be within the rule book.
yeah,
Because like as much as I love seeing him stand up for his team and the emotion that he shows, like he does take it over the top sometimes.
yeah, and he lost the game.
He ultimately did lose the game for Edmonton by taking the penalty. Though I do feel that the refs also miscalled that on the ice, that there maybe could have been a 2 minutes to Tkachuk on the play as well.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned the All Star game. How excited are you? Because I'm not.
Yay! I think the league should rename it the game for people who don't mind losing a couple of their days off.
People selected to not have a week off.
Yeah. The game for mostly good players who don't mind losing a couple of their days off in January.
Congrats, you've been selected.
It's a very catchy name, right?
Yeah. The one kind of cool thing this year, though, for the All Star game is that they're gonna have a 3v3 women's Team Canada versus Team USA game. That'd be kind of cool.
That should be pretty fun, yeah. And I think they're doing a similar deal to last year where the skills competition is going to have like the female hockey players participating in it as well.
Kendall Coyne, Schofield, and
Yeah, I think
yeah,
they'll probably do that, but they might actually have them in the competition rather than like the practice run that isn't shown on TV.
yeah. Just don't let fucking Pierre McGuire anywhere near them.
Preferably, yeah.
don't
Let's
let
just give him a
don't
hot
let
dog. Just
Corn
give him a
Dog
corn dog.
anywhere near them. Yeah.
Yeah. Just give him the corn
Oh
dog and
wait,
send him off to the press room.
that might be a bad idea. Just keep him away. Um, did you see Draisaitl's comments about if he'll be on
Oh,
the ice with
how did we
Kachuk?
forget that? How did we forget that? That's actually a golden comment. Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, so Draisaitl was asked, what are you going to do if you find yourself on the ice with Matthew Tkachuk in the All Star game? Draisaitl just said, probably go off.
I love that.
Like the
Honestly,
beef
like
is real. It's awesome.
yeah, I love that comment from him too. It's got that German, that like European dry humor where it shows that rivalry coming back, and it just shows how much it is just like a fun little comment in my opinion.
Like did Doughty make it? I think he did, right? He was voted in as like the one defenseman for Team Pacific.
Not this year. I think it was Hughes.
No, he was the last man in. Hughes.
Oh, I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, let's see. I
Let me
do a
check.
quick check here.
No, it was Giordano.
Ah, shit. That's too bad.
Yeah. Oh, imagine whoever the coach, I can't remember who's coaching Pacific right now, uh, puts a line of Draisaitl, Tkachuk, and Doughty together. Just imagine like if that happened.
Has there been a fight in the All-Star game?
Yeah, John Scott and Patrick Kane.
Oh yeah, of course.
Actually, wait, has there ever been a real
Legendary.
fight in the All-Star game? Not a joke fight, a real one this time.
Oh man, that would be awesome.
That might get people to watch the All-Star game.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna continue my tradition of not watching it because it's just I don't know. There's nothing really for me. Like
I'm
I
gonna
think we
continue
talked
my
about this
tradition of
last
using
year.
it as background noise because there's like a week and a half where there's half the league not playing, so I'll probably be bored and need something to watch, so I'll just throw it on in the background again.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last year. How like we're not
Probably.
really the target audience anymore.
No, especially not being at the place.
I'm not watching. Well, anything else going on in the league that you want to go over?
Well, one of the most exciting plays in hockey happened.
Goalie
Pecorine scored.
goal.
Goalie goal. It has been 6 long years since we saw a goalie goal, but there was finally one where Pecorine sniped it from behind the Predators' net and scored an empty net goal against Chicago.
Thank you, Chicago.
Basically, yeah, if they'd done one good thing in the last few years, it's let Pecorine score.
First since 2013 when Mike Smith scored.
The nice thing too is that it was an actual shot in the net, and not some like weird own goal.
Yeah, like last guy to touch it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
um,
pretty cool.
I think we should be. I think we should be looking to Rene to help the Predators in some clutch situations now, offensively. Maybe put him on the point in the power play.
Yeah, do the whole 3v3, pass it all the way back to him, and then let him take a
He can lead
clapper
the rush. He can be the catalyst of that loop and loop behind thing
all
to
the
get
way to the
speed up
blue line.
in the defensive zone.
Yeah, then he can do a slingshot,
Yeah, exactly.
or he can be the slingshot. He'll just be the guy skating out of the crease. New breakout, the goalie breakout.
I believe his new nickname is appropriate as well, Pekka Solani.
Yeah, just top sniper.
Best Finnish scorer ever.
One other thing is Jonathan Huberdeau became the Panthers' all-time points leader with 420 points. Dank.
Does he have 69 goals?
I hope so. That'd be a lot of assists.
No. I'm disappointed now.
That would have been too good. So that's pretty cool. I mean, he's only been in the league for what, like 6 seasons or something?
This is his eighth,
Uh,
and one of them he only played 31 games.
Pretty cool
But I
though.
think I think what's more astounding to me is that Florida's been in the league for 20 years and their leading scorer only has 420 points.
Yeah. I mean, who did he pass? Like Olli Jokinen?
I think it was Jokinen.
He wasn't there his whole career, so
Like, I mean, they haven't exactly had a star-studded roster
no, I
other
think
than like Pavel
their team
Bure.
now is the best they've ever been. So
Yeah, but that's kind of like disappointing from from an expansion franchise to have 20 years and then your leading scorer has like 5 good seasons for any other team. Because really,
yeah,
that's like 80. It's just like just over 80 points a year. A good team with a good player is going to put that up in 5 years.
yeah. I think Barkov's not too far behind him.
He'll be close, but he won't pass probably because it's harder to make that space that time up.
It's harder to pass a guy you play on a line with too, and he's getting a point for
Yeah,
every point you get, pretty much.
basically. Barkov's going to be asking for some extra power play time now.
Put me on unit 2, playing with Trocheck. And that's pretty much everything I had on my list, Sean. Is there anything else that you wanted to go over?
Other than those few big topics that happened in the last like 2 days, it was a pretty quiet week. So I think that about wraps it up for the week. once again, thank you everybody for listening. If you want to see more content from us, make sure you follow us on Instagram at Clappercast Media or on Twitter at Clappercast. If you like what you're listening to, make sure you share it on social media and pass it on to your friends and family. We appreciate all of that. So thank you, and we will see you next time.